Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on Friday afternoon. It's amazingly beautiful, and you'll see that as the backdrop for my next guest is going to show over his shoulder. Before we get started today, I want to thank incredible sponsors, Five Star Guitars, for being with me from the beginning. They're based in Beaverton, Oregon. They've got incredible guitars, they've got repairs, they've got lessons that you can even do virtually. So if you want pro lessons from phenoms like Jennifer Batten, you can go to www.fivestarguitars.com and sign up. Speaking of Jennifer Batten, today starts her Guitar Cloud Symposium, which is a conglomerate of four of the greatest guitarists on the planet doing a 3-day intensive workshop. So if you go to guitarcloudsymposium.com, if you're a guitarist, check it out, sign up, and get your education on. So Five Star Guitars, check them out. Thank you so much for supporting me, Five Star. If you've got a big fat stimulus check sitting in your pocket and you want to find something to do with it and you want to buy a guitar, Oregon has no sales tax. So if you're outside the Portland or the Oregon area, buy one of those guitars and save some money. So www.fivestarguitars.com will get you there. Now, this next guest, my buddy, we went to high school together. He's got a pretty circuitous story that brought him back to the Portland area. I love this journey that he's been on. He's certainly one of the most entertaining people I've met on the planet. If you've already seen him, then you know what I'm talking about. But we'll talk about all those ventures and some stuff that you might not even know. So with all that said, I want to introduce you to the man formerly known as Brett Kucera. This is Tony Starlight. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing beautifully. Good to see you, Kevin.
I'm glad to see you here too, bud. You, do you admit being from Bozeman? Is that an okay thing?
Oh,
that,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. It gives, Bozeman's come around since we left, probably because we left.
Yeah.
and it has a certain cachet. I remember nobody knowing anything about Bozeman, Montana, or hearing nose wrinkles in the 90s about Bozeman, Montana. But anybody you tell now, they're like, oh, Bozeman. Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's great up there.
It's hip to be from Bozeman, right?
Yeah, it is.
The funny thing is, there are some other places, right, in Montana that you might not want to admit being from. So there's a band that was kind of sort of, popular in the hard rock era. They were Butte guys, but I loved going to see them at the Cat's Paw and the other venues around Portland. They're on the show on Sunday called Jeremy Scared, and they are so tried and true Butte guys. And if folks, if you're not Montanans, I'm sure that you have some city in your state that's like this, but yeah, there's something special, I think, in the water, and it may not be totally healthy, but there certainly is. And
it's mineral runoff, right, from all the mining there. When we used to play baseball and we'd go to Butte, I hated when the game was over and we'd go walk through the line and get the good game, because you had 20 different guys just crush your hand in a row. Good game.
Yeah.
Good game. These guys with just these vice grip hands.
They weren't cold cocking you as you walked by, because that was the last time I actually got elbowed in the face, is in Butte.
Oh, I'm sure you earned it.
At that one I didn't actually, but I certainly earned my my welts and lumps. But that one was, just because I was playing rock and roll in a band and protecting some girl. So baseball was a big thing for you, right? You were really into that in high school.
I loved baseball. I loved pretty much all the sports. My height didn't keep up with basketball, so I think I went into my senior year of high school at like 5'3", and then left high school at 5'9", basically where I am now. But so being short didn't help there, and then it also, football, big mountain-fed Montana boys crushing me. But baseball.
What position were you playing football?
Well, I played football originally, like when it was like 8th grade, 9th grade, red and back. I was like a running back and then a flanker, which was a waste of time. It was like, because they never passed the ball. The idea was that they were gonna pass the ball to the flanker one of these days, but all you did was block.
Yeah.
And
you were a decoy.
I used to kick, but if you recall, Hall of Famer Shane Stenerud, or Hall of Famer Jan Stenerud's son Shane, went there, and he wanted to kick.
Of course he did.
So, well, he was going to be afforded every opportunity.
Right.
So,
yeah. This is a horrible thing to admit. I was at a handful of the football games in high school, but I was only interested in playing drums. I don't think I
Oh
watched
yeah.
one of the games.
Oh no,
And
I was done with high school by ninth grade, or done with football by ninth grade.
yeah,
Yeah.
I certainly got into it later on, but there was a different mindset at that point.
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to rock. That was it. I could care less. The only sport I was into really at that point was skiing, and I think everybody there had to ski, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
you were a skier as
I
well.
went a couple times, but
Okay,
not very many. No one without any lessons, because it's like a lot of just my whole career is I never wanted any lessons. I could figure out everything myself, which proved to be a foolhardy long way to do things.
sure.
And so going skiing without knowing what to do, just getting off a lift with my brother and then just starting down and like, holy crap, I'm going pretty fast. How do you stop?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so just having to control a wreck and just getting mangled. And that was back, when they didn't really have the ski brakes really well, or
Yeah,
chained you or
you had the
whatever. So
straps.
so one ski was gone pretty
Yeah.
much, and ski patrol helped me down. And I probably would have enjoyed many things better in life had I just let somebody give me a few pointers and didn't think I know everything.
Has that been continuous? Was that sort of
Oh
metaphoric for
no.
the rest of your
Well,
life?
that changed, obviously. And obviously if you do team sports, you submit to coaching and all those kinds of things. But I was incredibly shy, which people are real have a hard time really putting together with who I am now and how much of an extrovert I am. But back in those days, I was extremely shy. And the reason I didn't want to take a lesson is because I didn't want anyone to see how bad I was at something.
Oh,
Do you know
really?
what I
Even if
mean?
it was a coach or the instructor?
Yeah, just super self-conscious. So that, things I was naturally good at, like sports, I had no problem. But like when I'd pick up a guitar when I first got it and I was so terrible, I was like, well, I'm going to get to a certain level before I let anyone see how bad I am. And that took a long time.
It's funny that I was just thinking about the first lessons that I gave my kids skiing. The younger wanted to be helped because he didn't want to, he wanted to be able to keep up with his brother, but his older brother had absolutely no interest in lessons and felt like he could do it all. So that was the first opportunity for tough love. I'd say, okay, go for it then. I just leave him at the top of the hill and say, he'll figure it out. Now I look back on it and think, people were dying at Bridger Bowl, with head injuries
Yeah.
but there was that early confidence. I felt like this is a teachable moment, so
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of bumps and bruises. So,
yeah, you got to have them. Speaking of bumps and bruises, you took off really before we were done with high school to kind of launch out on your own, right? Did you?
no, I finished high school. I actually stayed behind 1 year. Not sure what I was going to do. Me and Phil Selbo were going to make a band.
Yeah.
And
My first original band was with Phil.
oh, really? What were
high
you
school.
guys called?
Crimson Zephyr. That was we did all of one show at the high school, maybe a talent show or some silly thing like that.
That's
And Jason, Phil Selbo and Jason starts with a G. Boy, that's horrible. But Phil was great. He was
Phil's
really
wonderful
cool dude.
guy. Wonderful guy. Yeah. And well, I had a band with the senior year of high school with Sean McFall on drums and Phil Selbo on bass and me on guitar and singing. And I, just horrible garage band.
Yeah, as we all were.
Exactly. And then, the following summer, I moved out to Eugene because Sean McFall was there.
Okay.
And I thought, I pulled into Eugene and there was parking meters and I thought, oh my God, what a huge city.
Right. Yeah, right. The big thriving metropolis of Eugene, Oregon. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And
what did you want to do then? Were you
I
wanting to
was
rock?
really bent on being kind of a singer-songwriter type, like I was in high school. I really loved kind of the U2 REM kind of melodic rock. And I loved that right as grunge was taking over the world.
Of course.
It
Yeah.
was like I was the wrong voice at the wrong time. And so after kind of struggling through that, playing a lot of solo guitar at a place called Delbert's Cafe in Eugene, basically I've been making my own gigs my whole life, Kevin. It's like I was working at a coffee spot and again, too shy to go audition to play for Allen Brothers, I thought, which was the coffee shop that had all the guys, I thought, I'll just put on my own night here. So I talked to the guys. I said, if I book music, will you guys stay open late? I'll do the hours. Just let me book music. Because we used to close at 5, you know. I said, well, stay open till 9 and I'll have music in here from 7 to 9, you know.
Not telling them that it was actually going to be you doing it.
Well, they figured that out eventually. Well, but I had a great anchor, Mark Allen, who's just a fantastic musician out of Eugene, great singer, great songwriter. I had him on Thursdays.
Okay.
And so that was like the anchor. And then Friday, Saturday, I put other bands up. And so I did every Friday because I had the Bully pulpit there. And that's just where I learned to do it. I learned my craft in front of the public by making my own gig, you know.
And when you did that, because were you still feeling pretty shy at that point? That like was the stage sort of like your excuse to get out there and get out of your shell?
Yeah, it was a little bit less so, you know, become a kind of a new personality up there on stage, you know. But, you know, Sean McFall was really good about pushing me out in front of people. You know, we were roommates and I lived with him when I moved to Eugene, and he was, there goes a boat.
I love it. That's great.
And he's like, you got to get out. Because I'd always say, well, I got to get better before I go to the first open mic. And, you know, he sort of just kind of basically pushed me out on, you know, signed me up at one of these open mics. It basically was at a house. You know, that's how informal these things were. There was kind of like these hippie co-ops in Eugene that would have an open mic and they'd serve tea and nobody would drink alcohol. And it was really hilarious.
It sounds like a Portlandia episode, doesn't it?
It absolutely was. Well, and I was up there singing songs about the environment. So.
Yeah, it's green, man. You know, we're promoting conservation, and you know, you came from an area that was, you know, really focused on that, from Montana. So
absolutely. No, I loved it. It was a great path, a very harmless kind of path where you could put yourself out there, and people were very, very supportive. I'm an incredibly late bloomer. I wasn't like, you know, I look at some of those guys like, you know, I played guitar in high school, but it's like Morgan Scott played guitar in high school. Like that guy was good. Or John Hermanson wrote songs in high school. That guy's great, you know, and it took me so long, but I wanted to do it. And I just wasn't going to take no for an answer. I'm just thankful that I survived long enough to make a career out of it. But you never would have thought. I had several people tell me to give up, like would pull me aside. Well, just trying to be nice to me, just saying, look, I know you love this or whatever, but hey, you can come back and do this, man. Like, go get an education, get something.
That sounds like your parents talking.
It actually wasn't. My parents were so supportive. These were actual friends, you know. And I think, you know, they were probably right, because when I look at and listen to the recordings and see what I was doing, they were right. It was terrible. But I just wasn't going to take no for an answer. Yeah. And then, honestly, in my mid-20s, I started to get a little bit of spark, something going. Actually, I was listening to some tapes the other day, and the difference between 1991 and 1993 was incredible.
That was like the big growth spurt.
Yeah. And so that was kind of that time people were telling me to give up, and they were right. But you listen to that and you go, oh, you sort of, the time in the trenches blossom. But as you know, you could play in public 4 nights a week and be terrible.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. You know, it's funny that I really thought that a lot of those bands that I was playing 5 nights a week in Montana were fantastic, until I go back and I listen to tapes now. And I think I seriously got up in front of people and I did this, and I took their money while doing it. You know, I'm really, there's a sense of guilt there, but you know, in the midst of that, because wasn't there a move to California? Did you do that at that point?
Yeah, so that happened later. That sort of happened in 1998, 99. Okay. I think 99 we moved to California. So, I mean, I wound up finally moved to Portland. I'd kind of give up the singer-songwriter thing. I didn't know really what I wanted to do. I got a job as a cook, and everybody was right. It's like I should have had something to fall back on, right?
Right.
But I was singing and goofing around work, and a couple guys there had like a little jazz trio, and literally this guy we called Nigel, his name was Brian, but we called him Nigel, the drummer.
Nobody used their real names, did they?
He said, you know, it'd be fun. Why don't you come down to the gig? We'll learn up about 4 or 5 songs, but just some kind of loungy stuff. You'll put on a powder blue tuxedo, and we'll call you Tony Starlight, and we'll sing just some jazz songs.
Nigel was the one that formed this new moniker.
Is exactly right. He came up with the name and the concept, and so it was Ralph Huntley, who's still around town, a great pianist, a guy named John Wager, who left us to join Pink Martini as their first bass player.
Wow.
And then Nigel, the drummer. So they were this jazz trio playing at Mark's Hawthorne Pub.
Wow.
And I got up, and it was in the beginning, it was like Bill Murray, Born Free, just like as bad a lounge as you could get. Sure. Cheesy.
Intentionally so, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun because I got to use my sense of humor. When I was writing songs, I was so deadly serious. But it turns out, I mean, people who knew me always knew I was like kind of funny.
Yeah.
And I was taking myself so seriously with music. This was when I was like, I could have fun and do music.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow. And so then I started music and song parodies and ideas for this band. And then that's what took that off. And so I did that for years around Portland, and like Jimmy Mac's was one of the great places we played. But then in '98, it kind of run its course. And the truth is, you know, I had built up a pretty dirty act, Kevin. I told a lot of really, really dirty, filthy jokes that I will not repeat. And I had a lot of kind of dark humor. Okay. It was a way to just get attention. Sure. You know what I mean? You know how it is. You tell a dirty joke, you get a lot of attention.
It works for Howard Stern, right?
So. Yeah. But then after a while, I found I was kind of surrounded by, I always say I was surrounded by a lot of kind of wounded people were my audience to a certain extent. And I didn't like it. And I wanted to change my act. But it was impossible to change an established act just like that.
Well, then your audience would disappear, right? Because all of a sudden,
Yeah, and it was what I did for a living. So, like I said, working 4 or 5 nights a week in Portland, if you can believe it, different venues, hauling a PA around, and
unbelievable,
blah,
really.
Blah, blah. But then my wife had an opportunity to transfer with her job to Santa Monica. So I said, let's do it, and I'll try out like comedy theater.
Okay.
And that's what we did. I went and made no money doing comedy theater.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do in LA.
For 7 years, but I learned so much in LA.
Well, yeah, you want to talk about the money-making side hustle you had going in LA when you were there?
Well, that took a while. So for a while, I was still just doing I got a job at a coffee shop so that I could go to auditions and try to be an actor and go to oh, I think my chair's falling apart. Hopefully I don't fall
no, that would make for a fun conversation.
That would be pretty fun. And try to rebalance my weight here. The and the LA Connection Comedy Theater. So I was writing comedy and writing a lot of musical comedy for the theater there too, like novelty songs and original songs that were funny. And then it was clear I needed to make some money. I needed to get a job. So I had been tutoring these kids after school for a while as like another side hustle. So I'd pick up these kids from school, take tuitions, help them with their homework, and blah, 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 blah. So I was like, I need to get a real job. So I went into an agency because there's a rare commodity, which is the manny. The man who is willing to look after kids.
Sure.
There's a few different people who wanted to do it. When I went into this office, there were 2 jobs available. One was with Ray Romano's family.
Oh, nice.
He had twins that were of an age where they wanted someone to come over and, sort of roughhouse with the kids, take them hiking, take them skateboarding, take them surfing, do all the things like that, they're having a hard time finding. Well, the boys like to go with boys to do those things, right?
Sure. Yeah, big brother.
I'm sure there was capable women of doing that, but the boys always felt weird about it. Right. They wanted to go with a boy. So, and then there was another one, which was Jack Nicholson's daughter, Jennifer Nicholson, her 2 sons. And so the first one, Ray Romano's family, would have been working with the mom all day.
Okay.
The second one, the mom worked and I wouldn't have to be with the mom all day. And I was like, this one sounds very appealing to me,
Absolutely. You bet.
because I didn't want to be, one of 3 children.
Right. Can you imagine the nightmare? Just
I
being
wanted
micromanaged as the Manny.
the autonomy. Well, she was great about that. She just gave me a lot of autonomy with them. And I loved those boys. And so I helped raise those boys for 4 years. And it was a decent paying job. It's funny, in LA, you don't realize there are people like who employ 20 people, like a family of 4 that employs 20 people.
Right.
3 people taking care of the garden. 1 person's a night nanny, a morning nanny,
Oh my, yeah.
a person who comes and cleans the cars once a week.
It's a different pay grade than a Flock of Seagulls drummer gig. I'm telling you, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I loved it. I loved it for what it was, for the time it was. I don't have children, so it really was kind of a rewarding time to spend 4 years with 2 young boys and
Yeah.
kind of get to help them find who they are and get through things like that. And it was a steady job, which was nice. And then, one day I was sitting at home taking a bath. I just always remember this. And I thought, because, we had bought a house in LA in 1999, which was the very bottom of their market.
Great.
And it had literally tripled in value
Wow.
in 7 years.
Oh my gosh.
And I said to Sherry, I was like, we could sell this house, go back to Portland, and I would have enough money to start my own club.
Yeah.
And God love my wife. She's been so supportive of me. She's like, that sounds great.
Wow.
And so
Yeah. And
that's exactly what happened. Came back and started Tony Starlight Supper Club and Lounge. And then instead of trying to make my act fit what somebody was booking, I was like, this is the show I want to do. Now I'll try to figure out how to make this business work around what I want to do.
I was literally outside the door of your old supper club building about an hour ago. I just had to pop up to the Hollywood district really quick with my son. And so we were outside and I told him the story about the building, and it was really unique in that location, and everything about it. The way you talk about presenting your show in a way that you wanted to, there was nothing at all like that in this area. I mean, Seattle had some kind of vibey stuff like that, and LA had some kind of stuff that tried to be like that. I remember, the 21, what was it called? There were some clubs that tried to have that sort of ambiance, but they didn't have the Roaring 20s and the crooner vibe behind it the way you did. And I remember just the food was incredible, and the drinks were the only place you could get fresh fruit squeezed stuff as well, right? So and because you had some sort of interest in that, right? It
was all, to me, it's all about the experience of going out. I mean, it's like, if you want to, you can watch Frank Sinatra on YouTube if you want to, but what you can't do is you can't go out and be met at the door by someone that says, hello, welcome to Tony Starlight's, and she's all dressed in vintage clothes. And then there's this sound in the air of music and chatter, and you're taken there and you pull the chair out and push the chair in, and then the smells and the sights and sounds. I mean, it's an experience created other than in, and what I always wanted to do. What I always thought is my show is the whole experience from when you walk in the door to when you walk out. And I wanted to, because that's, I grew up kind of watching Ricky Ricardo, and I know that wasn't real, but you'd watch that nightclub Ricky Ricardo scene. It's like, that's what I wanted to go experience.
Yeah.
And so that's what I tried to create the best I could. And I chose that quote unquote cursed corner because I could afford to do it all with my own dollars there and take a slow route. Like, you get a big high money place downtown and you got to make money right away. And then you got to start compromising to keep the doors open. Right. And there were people that, I don't know if you know who Don Younger was. He was like the guy who owned the horse brass and all that. He was one of the guys. He was going to be my co-investor. among other people, and they'd always say things like, well, we'll put the video poker machines
Oh,
over there, and then it's like, and then we'll have some TVs. And I go, but we're a music club. He goes, well, there's
right.
going to be a duck game and people are going to want to watch the duck
Oh,
game. And I'd be
yeah.
like, but why would they come to a music club if they want to watch the duck game? Like, we're going to be the place where when the show's on, everyone's going to go, shh.
Yeah.
And people are always like, people in Portland won't pay a cover charge. I mean, this will be a little bit of a brag that I don't know if it's true or not, but everyone told me you couldn't do a cover charge. And I started right away with like a $8-10 cover charge. And I honestly think that gave us a perceived value out of the gate that, a lot of other places were not doing that.
Sure.
And people were, expecting it for free but so I guess the nobody shared my vision. And if I was going to do this, I wanted to sink or swim on my own vision. The
Sure.
worst thing I thought would be that I failed and I didn't do my vision. It's like,
Right. Oh, I mean, what a tragedy, right? I mean,
you know,
it's hard to find people that can understand your vision, want to sort of live that experience with you, take those risks, because this was your baby.
right.
You talked about Sherry being supportive and willing to go from Santa Monica back up here. You went there for her work. Was she able to continue to work remotely, or did she have
Yeah,
to?
exactly. So yeah, she works remotely. She's able to be anywhere, which has been great. And it's
Yeah.
been great. She's gone, as a contractor, so she can adjust her schedule. So she works her schedule around me. So that we
Wow.
always get, Sundays and Mondays off, but then, she can work on Saturday when I'm working.
That,
So it's been great.
that's one of those things that probably makes the strength of your relationship that much more sort of
Oh,
fortified. And
absolutely.
from what I've seen, you guys are both really supportive of each other's passions and interests. And so, as
Oh,
far as
for sure.
relationships goes, it's good to see the ones that work. I mean, we all have those friends that have what we perceive to be the perfect relationship, and then that kind of behind the scenes stuff goes on, and it's just not that way, or they just, wow, how can they still be together? It's toxic for both of them, and you feel bad for your friends, but when you see
Yeah.
you guys together, it's really cool because you've obviously put in the work. There's a lot of respect and
Yeah.
admiration for each other, and that's huge, man. So I wasn't trying to get into too personal family stuff, but I admire it. I think it's great, man. So kudos to you guys for doing
Well,
that.
she's been great. I mean, we're out on the water because this is what her vision was. She wanted a home on the water, and I was like, what are you talking about? And then she's right. This is awesome.
That's a
I love
peaceful
it.
place.
And so, yeah, we definitely have been a team, which has been great. A lot of it, I've had to learn to give my will over, and because she's been so good about giving that over. I'll tell you kind of a funny story I was thinking of the other day, because it was like, she washed the clothes. They're all sitting out on the bed folded. And she said something like, aren't you glad I washed the clothes? And so I said, oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And so I'm thinking to myself, God, does she need to get praised every time that she washes the clothes? This is ridiculous. And then I'm sitting thinking, do they really have to clap after every song you sing, Tony?
Right.
Do they really have to laugh after every joke you tell,
Good
Tony? And I was
perspective.
like, oh my God, I'm such a jerk.
Well, it just, you know what? You become
I,
complacent, you kind of forget.
I got to be a fan of my wife every time, because I
God.
am. I got to show it though. I mean, it's not enough to just feel it. It's
Yeah,
to show it.
sure.
Because I learned that too, where I realized that, I was a bad audience member. I can't tell you how many good shows I'd go to, and I'd be sitting there in my brain going, oh man, these guys are great.
Yeah. But
Okay,
without,
that doesn't help. What helps
it's
is,
selfish. Yeah,
woo!
it's selfish, right?
You know?
I would bet that because you are such an entertainer, that when you go to a show, at least half of your brain is in overtime trying to figure out what's making that a really good show.
Oh, God,
And
yes.
then, or constructing the show and thinking, if I was them, this is what I would have left out, right? So you probably can't completely enjoy a show and just get lost in it, or can you?
Oh, but I enjoy the parts because I'm so nerdy, I don't want to call out any other clubs, but like before we opened our place, like when it was still just being thought of, you know,
Yeah.
Sherry and I wanted to see this group, right? And we get there an hour early so we could get a seat. And then right when the band starts, somebody comes and stands in front of us. And then it's just like we're seated looking at a guy's butt
Yeah.
for 2 hours, you know, and I'm gonna say, hey, dude. And he's like, come on, man,
Yeah.
music club.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, at my club, we're gonna take reservations. So you don't have to come like 2 seconds before and we spent so much time rearranging the tables to make them fit the size of the reservations.
Sure.
But what I wanted was that experience of, you know, if you wanted to come sit, you wanted to come last minute, but you wanted an unobstructed view, or you wanted to come early, whatever, we would make the experience about you.
Sure.
And just that there's nowhere I can't see or hear from. I mean, I always used to walk around and there'd be like a big band playing and I'd be putting black tape over the back of their music stands. I'm like, nobody wants to look at the back of your light bulb for 2
Right.
hours, dude.
Yeah.
Like, but just being fully aware of that, or, you know, the people in my band, sometimes I'm telling them, set up, you realize third of the room can't see you there.
Right.
You know, we don't want an invisible guitar player. Move up. Like,
Yeah.
think about all these things think about if you're out there, what you want to see. So much of, I mean, we did everything on a shoestring there, but I always made sure there was sound in every corner.
Yeah.
I had like all these speakers strung together so that any weird spot you couldn't hear, there was now a speaker to fill that area.
You know what? When you mentioned that, what I recall was that the sound was full, but it was never overpowering. It wasn't like you needed to have the music and, you know, like at a sort of a softer level so you could talk,
Right.
because that wasn't the focus. But it never felt like you're going to a metal club where you're having to wear
Right.
earplugs. You know, it was a comfortable experience. You could eat, you could drink, you could enjoy the music, you can hear the dialogue. That's the biggest thing that I remember, is that the dialogue was as important as the music.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought you really did a great job with that.
Well, maybe you'll appreciate it, maybe you won't, but the idea was that we're not miking drums.
Yeah.
Because then everybody else has to keep turning up. So
Sure.
The drums were loud enough to fill the whole room. So we put a little overhead just so we could put a little bit of drums in the speakers in the back of the room, but they weren't in the speakers in the front of the room. But that was the aesthetic of that.
I loved it. I really do. Mike Klaus is remarking in the chat that it's great that you were able to really focus and be able to present that for the audience. You know, a lot of venues need that because they don't think about the minute things that way, you know. And
I think for me, I always used to say, you know, the music scene is based on the artists, the fans, and the venues.
Mhm.
And so I was all three. So I understood what each one wanted and what each one felt lacking, or where each one felt underappreciated. You know, so I would feel like, well, how as a club owner do I feel unappreciated? You know, how as a customer do I feel unappreciated? Well, how as a musician do I feel unappreciated? So that's what always builds up the resentment. I can't tell you how many clubs, and you tell me, well, when I first quit music and was willing to go to LA, I have to tell you, it was, again, I'm not going to name any venues, but you know, we work really hard on a act, and you go, and there'd be a sound man who just go kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, snare, and then just turn up the drums and the bass so loud and you couldn't hear my act.
Sure.
You know, like they didn't care about my act.
Right.
And if I told them how I wanted it, what they were hearing is, you don't know how to do your job.
Right. You're being
and maybe
told.
I was young and inelegant and didn't know how to express myself like I do now. Or, you know, venues where you felt like you were bothering the bar to get a drink.
Right.
Or if you were in the band, if you were bothering them, or
right.
Or the weird thing where the band's telling the audience to tip the waitress and the waitress makes twice as much as the band. So that's a weird energy.
Right.
But so I understood all those different things.
Sure, absolutely.
And so we wound up just attracting a great family of musicians who were all there to really support each other. Like the fans were going to love the band, which was going to respect the venue, which was going to respect the musicians and the people. It was always just about this, having respect for what each person brought to the table, you know.
You know, I have to say, with that in mind, the respect that you talk about was really carried over into a lot of the work that you did with local charities, local organizations like Oregon Music Hall of Fame. uh, I loved the fact that you were so willing to support the scholarship award evenings where organization like Oregon Music Hall of Fame would basically have their annual events to raise money so that they could provide scholarships for music students that would it was more difficult for them to go on to a different school, and this was like a subsidy, right, for them, that they've worked hard to get their academics up, and they've got all this passion for music, and then if they can't afford to pursue that, Oregon Music Hall of Fame wanted to at least help supplement that dream. And you jumped right on board to not only have the scholarship award evenings, but you'd also have the announcement for the Hall of Fame inductees. And I remember going down there with a lot of Portland's dignitaries,
Hmm.
and people that have made an impact in Portland music, whether it be performance or radio or anything like that. Some of my favorite moments were down there with Mike Skill from the Romantics, and Julie Jockham's down there from PD
Oh
Exposed.
yeah, yeah.
Julie loves you. I know she had a drink, I think, named after her on your menu, right? The mermaid drink. But
She's great. Yeah.
like all of those experiences, I think made people feel like you were the destination spot in town. You're promoting Jimmy Max right there on your shirt, and it's been a real great club for people that understood that venue also was really geared towards making sure that people had a great experience with music,
Yeah.
but it gave back to the community.
Yeah.
And you were a community-based organization.
Well, we're in a people business, Kevin. I
Yeah,
mean, it's like, I've been singing to a camera, but I was out the other day doing some live events, outdoor events, and just to see that face smiling
oh
back
yeah,
at you and singing along and clapping. I mean, it's a people business. And so this is going to sound weird. And my business model, my plan, well, I didn't have deep pockets, right?
sure,
But what I had was my time and my energy. And so my marketing plan actually was, well, I'm going to do as much charity work and getting involved in as many things that help people as I possibly can with my time and my venue and however I can help. And that's how people are going to hear about me. And that's how people are going to want to be involved with me, not because they saw a little print ad in one of the rags around town. So I never bought those ads. I'm
right,
like, so I spent $500 a week on that. So it cost me $2,000 a month, or I could donate the equivalent of $2,000 or $5,000 worth of my time
yeah,
to these things, and it'll pay back. Like the worst thing that's happened is I'm going to help people that needs help.
yeah. Isn't
That's
that
the worst thing,
right? Yeah, that
right? And
absolutely.
so, and I think about this because this is a really weird thing I haven't heard anyone really articulate before. But so, like, I've been 10 years now. I've been the MC at the Northwest Down Syndrome Association Buddy Walk. So once a
Okay,
year, we get down at the Moda Center, and people come out that have friends with Down syndrome, and you walk around and you support, and you make a little team, and you pledge money, and
yeah,
it's just a way to show support for those who have Down syndrome. And I didn't know anybody with Down syndrome. I didn't know anything about it, but getting out there for 10 years, I now am so involved, and I know all these people personally that
yeah,
have Down syndrome or are touched by Down syndrome. And then I think about, well, what if a program to help people with Down syndrome was fully funded and we didn't need to raise money every year? I wouldn't know any of these people. I wouldn't
right,
have any personal connections. And when I'd see somebody with Down syndrome, I'd kind of have I gave it the office kind of feel. But
right.
instead, I'm so personally involved. And I'm just picking one of them with Down syndrome. You talk about the Oregon Music Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
There's a big handful of these charities that I've worked with for over a decade, Oregon Music Hall of Fame over a decade. But I go there and now we all know each other. Like
yeah,
we know the people that are behind these things. We'll see the kid who got the scholarship, and then you see them 4 years later and they're kicking it at their
right.
instrument. And you,
Yeah,
you see what that touched. And if all these things were just funded, you wouldn't have that connection to it. So
sure.
so I don't know how to articulate it, but sometimes people complain that all these things are so underfunded. I'm like, get out there and do it.
Yeah.
Help, because it's better that you feel like, if I don't get out there, they're not going to have what they need. It's
Accountability.
my responsibility to make sure they have what they need.
Man.
And once I started, and that's how I turned my act. I mean, for 20 years of doing Tony Starlight, it was like, look at me, everybody love me, aren't I funny,
Yeah.
aren't I charming? But then honestly, the last 10 years have been all about, how can I use my skill set to make people happy?
Yeah.
And
Do you,
it's been just a
what,
joy.
so let me ask you about that transformation. Because to me, really what I hear, what I sort of interpret that way is that you're developing a legacy in a really positive way. When I think of legacy, some people think of, acquisition of assets and money and notoriety and that kind of thing. But the things that I feel really strong about are seeing people that make a difference. I, I talked about this on the show yesterday or the other day, that last year I went and spent a couple of weeks in Thailand, and I hired this retired monk to take me behind the scenes of these temples. I wanted to go and see stuff that was off the beaten path. And he introduced me to all these students, these monks that were practicing, and teenagers that in most cultures around here, they'd be camped out in front of Fortnite and just, that's their sort of obsession. There, these kids were giving their time, their energy, all of their teen years to learn how to be loving unconditionally, to be serving peace and kindness. And I thought, even if you fail at that, making an effort to do that is so worthwhile. It's so, I feel like such a worthy cause, just to be able to share that with people. When you found that your life changed that way after doing Tony Starlight for 20 years, and in the last decade, seeing really the charitable efforts being something that was more important to you. But you mentioned you don't have children. So a lot of
Right.
times people's lives change because they have kids and they realize, wow, you know what? I need to shift my focus. So what do you think that was with you? Was it wisdom, time,
It
maturity?
may have, I mean, it's a little bit of what you say, in that since I don't have kids, I felt like I still have to find a way to leave this world better
Yeah.
than how I came into it. That's my responsibility. But part of it also too, you do good, it makes you feel good.
Yeah, sure. Well, there's a selfishness there too. But
it's still kind of selfish. But the truth is, it's like, people are like, why don't you go to Vegas and do a Vegas show? It's because
Right.
it'd be a room full of strangers every night.
Sure.
There's something so special about seeing somebody come to my Christmas show coming at 7, and now they're coming at 17. They've been coming for 10 years to It's a Tony Starlight Christmas, and now they're going off to college.
Right.
And so their family, we've been part of that family, or part of the Oregon Music Hall of Fame family, and you're just part of something. And I like to be a part of something that's bigger than me, and that's what getting involved this way does. It makes you part of, I always say it's like if I do your wedding, I really feel like I'm in your family the rest of my life. Like
Absolutely.
I've married people, and then I sing at the ceremony, but we've had meetings. I know who your parents are. I know what song you dance to. I got to watch all your loved ones come up and speak and talk about you. And that's just so fulfilling. Like, again, when I was young, if I was at a wedding, I would be bored
Right.
in between when I wasn't singing,
Yeah, it's a gig, right? Yeah.
But now it's like, and it's funny because, so and so wants to sing with you, and I'd always be like, oh God. Now I'm like, awesome. How
Yeah.
can we make Uncle Charlie sound great?
That's
And so I put all my effort into making Uncle Charlie sound like the greatest thing in the world, like coach him up and make him shine. And since, I guess it's just kind of like, it's a call and response. Like, the more I put myself into helping other people look and feel good, the better everything is. It's like that energy that spirals. What do you call it? It's like a positive feedback loop. It's
Sure. Yeah.
just things just get better and better and better and better. And then you get people who, like, when this thing hit and all of a sudden I have no income instantly,
Right.
and I go online and do a couple uh, live streams, people immediately, start sending the nicest letters and send some
Yeah.
cash along, a donation, or they respond to my newsletter. Hey, what do you need? Is there anything we can do to help? It's like, that's a great life.
That
It's
is
like,
for sure. When
it's
you,
the It's a Wonderful Life at this scene, and with Jimmy Stewart, and the whole
right.
town comes. That's how it felt. So
Okay, well, you realize that that happens because I think, right now, because everybody is affected in some way, even if their income hasn't entirely dried up, but their source of fulfillment was to go out and see live music, or they wanted to go and be involved in social activities. The fact that those disappeared, but you're providing some sort of avenue for them to have entertainment, a respite from, the
mhm.
chaos out there. And yeah, they're willing to encourage you to do more and let you know that they're appreciative. I think it's fantastic that you do that. I'm thinking about that change that you talked about, right? Where the more you do, the better you feel, so the more that you give back. And you mentioned that it kind of happened over the last decade. Was there somebody in your life, or was somebody that was really influential that kind of awakened that interest of yours?
Well, I don't know if it did, but if I just look forward, I mean, we're talking about Jimmy Mack here.
Yeah.
When I wanted to open my own club 15 years ago, I told Jimmy I wanted to do it. And he's like, hey, come on down. I'll have lunch and I'll tell you everything you need to know. So he helped me through every step of the way. He always would answer his phone and answer every question I ever had about running my own venue. And a lot of people would have looked at that situation and go, why would you help the competition?
Right.
Because when I started, it was kind of a direct competition. I was
Sure.
hiring a lot of the same people. He didn't see it that way. And he's not the only one in my life that have been that way. It's just I know these people who just that I look up to and admire, and what I see in them is, what can I do? What do you need? Well, Terry Courier's one of those.
Same. I thought the same thing.
Terry Courier,
Yeah.
that guy, you know, he should have sold that place 20 years ago when he could have got some money,
Right.
when he could have got something for it. Now he's behind in this thing, and who wants a record store? And no one. That guy is so beloved,
Yeah.
and for good reason. And he is so kind and so thoughtful. And I mean, that isn't that what a life is?
I
Isn't
think
that,
so.
you know?
Those are the conversations I have with my children, right? I've got a 21-year-old who he's a great drummer, but he aspires to be a hip hop artist. And his heroes, the guys that he aspires to look up to, are not living that life yet, right? I mean, really, it's very self-indulgent. And
Right.
and I have to look at it and go, okay, that's an age appropriate thing to chase. I was there at 21 too, right? My youngest is a lot different, right? He's a servant of people, and he gets the idea of being a steward, to leave this place better than you arrive. And I think, it's interesting to me that, like, Terry is a lot like those people that I told you about in Thailand, right? The unconditional giving back. The Mother Teresa's of the world, the Gandhis, like the Fred Rogers, the Mr. Rogers out there, that really try to promote positive energy, giving love no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Terry's that guy. When he has just all the adversity in the world crushing him as a record store owner,
Yes.
what does he do? He'll have record store day, or he'll have
Yeah.
customer appreciation day, where he
Always.
gives everything away. He gives food. He'll feed people all day long. He'll have live music. He'll do package giveaways, and he'll invest hundreds of hours of his time a year to give these scholarships. He works on all these other boards. And so I love that you see that. And maybe it wasn't one thing that lit a fire in you to do something like that, but we're blessed to have some people in our community that do that. And so when the community sees that those people are in need, they rally, so when Jimmy was, when Jimmy Max was like moving and then having, some other things going on, and the community needed to come behind him. And we certainly saw it when he passed. Right. JD is on here. He's just saying Terry is the bomb. He also says he digs your shirt, and he knew that his ears were burning. But, the community rallied behind Jimmy Max. The community rallies behind Terry Courier.
Yeah.
In fact, Terry Courier Day is in a few days, I know, here in Portland, which is great.
He's also, he's on my favorite joke about Terry I tell is he's on the National Registry of Historical Hair.
Yeah. Yeah. He will never, ever, ever be able to get rid of the hair. He just can't do it, But, and so there are obviously a lot of people that are maybe watching this conversation that have never met Terry Courier, that have never met Jimmy Mack.
Right.
But there are people in your community, right? And so I, hope that people recognize those people in their community to stick around and support, because right now when there's a pandemic and venues are closed, there needs to be sort of a community support. Even if you can't do it financially, get the word out there that if a venue is open and maybe they can do food, as a drive-by pickup or whatever, support them, buy their merchandise, do whatever you can.
Right.
Because those people, venues like yours need that community to rally behind in order to really sustain. And
yeah. And if I don't know how this will come out sounding, but very few people are venue owners. So
right.
I very rarely see something articulated. And I'll say it anyway. I'll read on Facebook talking about what this venue's gone out of business. Well, serves them right. They didn't do this, they didn't do that, and so on and so forth. I will say this. There's a lot of venues that make a lot of mistakes. And sometimes, they're not as on the up and up as they should have been or whatever. But everybody that owns a venue, first of all, that's that person's dream.
Yep.
Because that's not the best way to make money.
Right.
It's not even near the top.
Right.
Second of all, if you have a failed venue, you will walk away with a mountain of debt that will possibly follow you around the rest of your life. You may have bankruptcy issues and so on and so forth. And you'll have everybody online telling you all the terrible things you did wrong and what you should do. And you'll walk around with a bunch of shame because your employees no longer have jobs. The musicians no longer have a place to play, and the fans no longer have a place to play. So anybody who's ever put themselves out, and there's a few people I know around town who've had venues and lost them, they deserve so much love and respect. And if anybody's ever bad talking venues, set them straight, or venue owners, just give them some slack, because it takes a lot of guts to. This sounds self-congratulatory, but it's not meant to be that way. I don't hear there's not very many people who've been in that position, and I am so grateful to the people that own venues, because there's no way I could do it. How would we do what we do without the venues?
It wouldn't happen. They really do need the focus.
Absolutely.
You're right.
Wouldn't happen. And a lot of them are like Terry, where they are there sacrificing all their time and effort to make sure that you have a place to look and sound good.
Right.
What do you need? Or maybe you're there one time and you complain that something's gone or not right, and you come back the next week and it's fixed because they want to make sure Kevin got what he wanted on there. I mean, I've worked with so many people like that, and yet, the math is against them and they can't keep that thing going. But I just wanted to kind of get that in there.
I'm glad you did. People need to know, because most of it's perspective, right? When people bitch about how somebody's managing their business, it's often out of ignorance, right? They're not business owners. They're not venue owners. They don't know. And so they're speaking about things they don't know. And that's the way for most people that have their opinion out of social media, right? And so one thing you can do, really, you're a benefit. You've got the benefit of experience in the venue owner and the performer and the entrepreneur spirit. But a lot of those other people that are working a job where they're being told what to do, and they're not really having to think for themselves or fend for themselves. That's great, because that fits a certain type of personality too. But rather than making a statement out of ignorance, it's great to educate yourself at least a little bit about
Yeah.
how those things are done. And if not educated, at least uh, acceptance, embrace their differences, right? That is one of those things that I think, as you're working towards getting to the Gandhi state or whatever, that you can at least recognize the worth in whatever somebody's doing. I would love, I mean, I think we probably let venue owners get their cred right there. I would love to talk about the other passion that you have, because a
Oh,
lot
for
of
sure.
people don't know that you're a bird specialist. You want to talk about
The
your
bird
passion?
nerd. Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about where that came from.
Well, so I used to jog about 5 miles 3 to 4 times a week to kind of stay in shape and get my dogs exercise and all that. And then I was that generation where it's always the no pain, no gain, right? So my
Right.
foot started to hurt, but that's just good.
Yeah.
Only a quitter would quit. Don't let your body telling you that pain.
There's the football that came out of
Yeah,
Bozeman
that's
right there.
Bozeman Hawk, Mr. Pomeroy in 8th grade, calling you out.
That's
Okay.
right.
So anyway, I wound up hurting my foot pretty bad with a repetitive motion injury called sesamoiditis.
Okay.
And so there's these two little bones in the ball of your foot that float. They get inflamed. And so when they get inflamed, it hurts like a 4 all day, and it hurts with like a 6 or 7 every step. It's not like a 10, but it's never below a 4.
Oof.
It's always this dull pain
Yeah.
all the time. And it took 4 or 5 months of staying off my foot to get any semblance of normal. Anyway, long story, I'm making the story longer. But so I couldn't run anymore, but I still needed to go out with the dogs.
Okay.
So we had just moved out here on the water, and I go up to the top of the boat landing and let the dogs sit around, and I'm just standing there, and I'm just so bored. I can't run.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do. I'm just standing there. And I notice all these birds, and so I bring along a pair of cheap binoculars that I have one day, and I start watching them, and I just get drawn into their world. First of all, they're just beautiful. Like some birds that just, oh, that's a brown bird, flies by. And then you look at it close and you're like, oh my God, it's orange and blue, and there's speckles here, and it's just gorgeous. There's that. And then you start to get into the drama of their world. It's like, oh, they're not playing. He's trying to kill him.
Right.
Oh, birds eat other birds. What's this? What's this going on here? So, well, this guy's trying to mark out his territory, right? Or, first of all, he's up there singing, trying to track the girl. But then he's got to run all these other guys off to defend his territory. Then later in the year, a girl is going to check out, his territory, see if she accepts him, they have their little moment, and then off. And then that means there's going to be a nest nearby, and then there's going to be these little babies nearby. And it's like a drama show. It's just so exciting. If you're outdoors all the time. And then when you're down on the water, you don't think about it, but there's just birds all over near water. I mean, birds love to be near water. So I think there's about 130 different species I've identified out here where we live. And I love watching the drama of it. And then I started getting a camera and taking pictures, and I thought, oh, why don't I make a camera or a calendar? So I made a calendar of my photos, and it was kind of like it's a good business thing, because I have a calendar. People can think about Tony Starlight 365 days a year, not just at the 2 shows they come to.
That's right. That's a great thing. I was going to share a few pictures of the birds that you've taken.
Oh, please do. Yeah. What's kind of so, and then that goes right into the idea of like, now that was taken in Alaska on a trip. And so when you kind of get into these birds, it makes your trips more fun. Like when we go on vacation, I'll sort of plan a couple walks that are near where we're going, and get up early and bring the camera and go on a walk and see what I can see that's in the area. Because every region you're in has different birds that live there.
Sure.
And it's just kind of fun to it's a bird you see in a book, and so you think you're going to know what it looks like, and then you go, oh my God, it's a Laszlo bunting. So,
So did you, when you started observing him, is that when you started studying the different, the variants of owls and the different species and
yeah, the more it's like anything that you get good at. It's hard to get good at it quickly. You get good at it by doing it a little bit over and over and over and over and over. So, I'm looking at birds and observing them, 15 minutes at a time every day over 5-6 years now.
wow,
And so that's a little baby. That's a baby of the previous one you saw.
really
But you start to learn where, like an owl's going to be. There they are, the little couple.
incredible.
Those are little babies there. Well,
Snuggling to keep warm.
you learn what part of the tree certain birds are going to be in, or what kind of behavior, or how they fly. So I brought my binoculars with me everywhere I went, at first, and then now around here, I can tell what every bird is from a distance just by little tiny things. So like, it's swirling around and it's small with sharp wings and a split tail. So it's going to be one of the swallows. Now, is the belly white? Okay, so now it's got a white belly. It could be either the tree swallow or it could be the violet green swallow. Does it got a little bit of violet on its back or a little bit of purple on its butt? Okay, that's the violet green. So
Wow.
just, or just, by how that bird landed, that's a woodpecker, because a woodpecker is always going to land up against a trunk, not on a branch.
Okay.
So you can see a bird get up and fly, and then it's going like a dart, but like, how does it approach the tree? It went up against the trunk. That's a woodpecker.
Incredible.
So it's fun.
I
And
love it.
then I've made bird friends. So there's me. We captured that eagle. I have a friend, Dan, who has a nonprofit, Coastal Raptors, and what they do is they just track these birds, take blood samples, feather samples, try to mark their health, find out how long they're living. Like one day this bird might be found dead somewhere, and then they'll know how long it lived, and they'll be able to maybe go through its stomach, see if it was poisoned, or how it. So it's just fun to kind of tag along on these things. And the people in the bird community are great, by the way. Like any group of nerds are the nicest people.
Boy, I've got a great friend in Lewistown. Well, he was in Lewistown. Now he's in Madras, Oregon. But he is, he lived near you out at Scappoose for a long time. And his partner raises racing pigeons. Is that right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But he had, like, people would come from all over the world to bring him their pigeons so he could train them to race. So he had one aviary for the racing pigeons, and then my friend Patrick Rummins, I guess known highly in the industry, he started off as a taxidermist, but now he's been raising hawks and owls, and he's got all sorts of birds. And I was blown away by how much space was taken up. It was like he had the size of a zoo at his place there by Scappoose. And his whole life is consumed with birds. And I can imagine that you could just get so into that it becomes your obsession, your passion.
Yeah.
Now obviously this is not the first time you've handled a predatory bird.
I couldn't believe how strong that thing is. I mean, he's about 15 pounds, and he's small. He's actually a small bald eagle. And it's taken my strength to keep his legs together. You can't believe how they're just solid muscle.
Well, I'm wanting to know how his beak is not tearing out your bicep right there. Really?
I'm just about ready to set him down on the ground. I got him pinned pretty good. One of these days I'll get pecked and I'll go, well, Kevin,
yeah,
you're right. I should have been more careful.
Really, I mean, to me, that looks like, like, I realize that their beaks are, they're used to tearing salmon apart.
Oh,
right?
They're designed to tear flesh.
Yes. Yeah. So
apart.
So that you really shouldn't have much of an arm left there, but maybe I thought maybe this was actually a stuffed bald eagle, and no, I love it. Oh, man, just stunning. It's crazy. The fact that you've got such an eye for sort of designing your set too. Understanding what the birds are going to be are one thing, but you don't just stumble upon this bird, without really understanding their landscape and their
Yeah.
ecosystem. And
I
I think
might have taken 500 pictures of that bird, and that's
mm,
my favorite.
that's gorgeous. They're really, you know, um, what a great opportunity for you. When I talk to musicians and business owners in this kind of time, when they're unable to completely get involved in things that they're passionate about, without being able to play music, you've got some other things in the fire that keep you not just entertained, but you could, I would imagine, spend all day just looking at birds and be happy with it.
Yeah, well, the thing kind of about birds, if I can make the case again too, it's like I like puzzles, right? So when you're out and you're in the mode where I want to try to spot birds and find birds, it's a puzzle. So we were just in Sun Valley, and ooh, there's a what's that? So take a picture, get the camera out, take a couple pictures, and then get home and try to develop and figure it out. Well, it turns out it was a mountain bluebird. Never seen a mountain bluebird before, so I didn't know exactly what it looked like. But so that's kind of fun. So it satisfies that part of it. Two, I'm 50. It's something I started at the age of maybe 45, 46, and I can do it for 20 years
Right.
without risk of injury.
Right.
It's not like skiing where every time I go, it costs me $300. You just buy a nice camera, a nice pair of goggles or, binoculars, and then it's almost free.
Yeah.
It's a free hobby. It can help you pass the time. And then really for me, I'm in a business where I'm around a lot of people and I'm giving out a lot of energy, and it's loud and there's a lot of hustle and bustle. And then you go do that and it's just quiet and it's all observing.
Nice.
Like, believe it or not, I do eventually not talk over the course of a day.
Oh, I do understand. Believe me. I think in that way, you and I are very much alike. There are a lot of times where, I'm a social guy as well. I mean, I thrive on touring and getting to hang out with everybody that I love, and even doing this show. I really look forward to having an opportunity every day where I can reconnect with people that have been inspiring to me, but it becomes exhausting in all sorts of different ways. And having to recharge. I'm going to go camp in a couple of days and go watch the Perseid meteor shower. That's my getaway. But I think I love the fact that you're able to do it. You came from Montana, right? So I think the stereotype might be that, of course you're into birds or an outdoorsman, right? Because you're from Montana, but not that many people are really like that. I mean, there are people that hunt and fish and do all those kind of things, but I think the fact that this was a late bloomer fascination for you and obsession for you, but it's something that is in hand, like you talked about being a steward of the world, making the world a better place. You educating yourself about these animals and understanding them probably lends a little bit more energy towards conservation for those animals. It's a positive thing. It's certainly not destructive. And so I think having the sort of fascination about them and obsession and wanting to promote them is essentially like protection for them. And it's such a great thing. I mean, we all just need that to the perspective shift and the focus on something else that's more positive. I love it. I think it's one thing that I didn't know as much about you, but I have seen your attention to making your world better. And it's just like one more little notch in the Brett Kucera belt that I think is phenomenal.
Well, the COVID hits, but I walk out and the birds are still singing.
Yeah, right.
They were doing it before I'm here, and they'll be doing it after I'm gone.
Yeah, it's absolutely
put your own self in perspective a little bit. There's this eternal chain that preceded you and will postseed you, and you just got to carry your bucket of water and hand it to the next year in that fire drill, right?
That's right. Right. I was going to for people that hadn't gotten to know you at all, I see some friends of mine, Claudia in Germany right now. She's chiming in.
Guten Tag.
And Guten Tag. It's 1:00 in the morning their time, or It's late, but she wanted to chime in and see. For people that don't know Tony Starlight and Brett Kucera, I want to make sure that they check out. You've got the Tony Starlight Showroom that you have been doing these streaming shows, some episodes. I was going to try and share a little bit. Let me see if I can share some of this. This is great. So folks, if you're watching this,
I got time to
go to
say 'em all,
YouTube.
and then I'll give you the
Here.
top 3 as voted by ourselves. So
Are you able to
here's
hear
all of 'em.
that?
Nick
Yeah.
and the COVIDs.
There's going to be a lot of talking here. You got to either go forward or backwards.
Yeah, there's plenty of music, but I don't want to get
Here
nailed
we
with a
go.
copyright strike.
I am massive.
Oh, there's a great Neil Diamond. Here, if I play too much of that, I get the copyright strike on the
I
playback.
understand.
But what they can do is they can go to live from the Tony Starlight Showroom. They can subscribe right here under Tony Starlight Showroom. We want to make sure that people have an opportunity to get these experiences with the COVID thing, kind of keeping them away from your showroom right now.
Yeah.
How often do you guys do your shows?
We'd been doing them once a week. Well, I was doing 2 a week for a while. I was pretty consistent on Wednesdays, but in the summer I've actually got some gigs because we can play outdoors.
Okay.
So I actually just got back from Sun Valley where I did 2 nights of fundraisers to 50 people each night because that was the limit, outdoors. Yep. Sun Valley Culinary Institute. I did a couple evenings did a night of Neil Diamond songs and stories, and then a night of Frank Sinatra songs and stories. And then, I have some shows like at Aurora Colony Vineyards and some places local, and some people have hired me to just come play in their backyard. A couple families,
Some house concerts,
just set up and do that. So I'm probably not back until the August 20th Wednesday or the one after, but we've been on Wednesdays. But if you subscribe there, of course, you get a little notice when we come up with a show, but they're generally on Wednesdays, and they'll pick up again. TonyStarlight.com, they're always listed on there. We list both the in-person shows and the live streaming shows on our events calendar, so that's a great place to see that.
Yeah. When I archive the show, I'll make sure that I've got links to both the TonyStarlight.com site and your showroom YouTube channel. I think folks do make sure that you get out there, you subscribe to his channel, because if he's got a lot of episodes already out there. So you've got some entertainment that's free and it's on demand when you need it. And then his TonyStarlight.com site, you can find out when you can see him in the backyard somewhere, maybe until we get the shows back.
Well, and if you want to watch online, and we've done things where next Wednesday is my grandma's birthday and she loves Dean Martin.
Wow, are you gonna do a Dean Martin show?
So then I would get a picture, have her email me a picture, and during the show we can give a shout out to grandma and sing one of her Dean Martin songs. And so everything that I do in my own show to make it personal with the audience, we do with the live shows. I mean, I'm very interactive with the people that chime in on the sides, and it's still all about, again, using my skill set to make people happy.
I love it. Man, we need that positivity, buddy. We really do. I think there was a reason that you were brought back here to the Portland area out of Santa Monica, so you could bring a whole new set of culture and positivity to Portland. I'm grateful.
Well,
you're in the Northwest.
I got to tell you something kind of funny about you, because we went to high school together, but weren't very close. We knew of one another, so on and so forth. And then you get the kind of thing. We're out in Portland. It's like Kevin Rankin. Oh yeah, I remember him. He lives out there. Then we started running into each other at the Oregon Music Hall of Fame stuff. And I'd see you there. And then I forget who I was talking to. I was like, yeah, I ran into Kevin Rankin. He's so nice. I don't know. Is that real? I don't know. Is he really that nice? Because he seems, I don't know. Is he putting that on? And then over the years now, you are nice. And it's not just nice, like you are invested in all these things. And like I say, invested in people.
Yeah.
And so, I think what makes a community is the people.
Yeah.
Because I was talking about this at the fundraiser I was at. So me and the piano player that I met up there, you know, we would been rehearsing on the deck at 3 o'clock, and then back at 6 o'clock, we played to the people. And I was like, you know, we were here singing these same songs at 3 o'clock, but it wasn't a community.
Right.
It wasn't
Yeah.
anything until you were all here, right?
Right.
And you sort of totally, you know, get that vibe at the places we run into each other and the mutual friends I know and the things they say about you. It's like, you know, Kevin is the kind of guy that you want on your team, want on your side, you know. And even though he's got eyes that are different color, and it's really scary and sketchy, and we don't really know why that happens.
I'm part Australian Shepherd. We know that.
But I want to give you a great compliment for, and I've watched a lot of these episodes.
Oh, you have?
And
Okay.
yeah, well, God, I love the one with Kenny Aronoff.
God,
And
no kidding.
And but you know your stuff, and you're so supportive of people in the community, man. That vibe comes off, and I love you for it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. You know, I fought that disarming wall for a while about people thinking, you know, come on, man, are you really that nice? For a long time. Yeah, I felt like I was trying to sell them something. And but I just genuinely love people, right? And the community is a huge blessing to me. And I've talked about it on if you've seen it on the episodes, like I've had this slogan as part of my my web design business that I felt like there was a quote that Jim Carrey had, right, when he did his speech to these economic students. And he said at the end, because it was economics, you know, he talked a lot about transactions and currency and worth and value. And he said, but the effect you have on others is the greatest form of currency there is. And I truly believe that. I feel like that more than anything else is what we really need, is to be able to leave that positive, lasting effect. It's what people, the Terry Couriers of the world and the Jimmy Macks of the world and the Brett Kucera, Tony Starlights of the world are doing too. I can only hope, you know, to just affect people in that positive way. And to me, that's how I feel like I can leave the world a better place. It's the hope, you know.
Can we do this again and say all the bad things that we know about each other?
I don't know anything bad about you. I really don't. You know, it's not, you know, I mean, I think I was grateful to get to do a series of these with people that I admire because they're giving back. You know, there are a handful of people that I've talked to on the show that I've never met. I've met Kenny a couple of times, Kenny Aronoff, but we don't know each other personally, although I felt like I did more after having the conversation with him. His thing was really funny because we're scheduled for a part 2. We were going to do it on Wednesday and he got booked for a session, which is great. But between his part 1 and the part 2, I talked to his drum tech on the show, who he techs for Kenny Aronoff. And he also techs for Alice Cooper's drummer, Glenn Sobel, who's a great friend of mine. And I said, you know, with Kenny's interview, right? I love people's backdrops when we do the interviews, like yours. You've got the beautiful, you know, the river behind you, and even the way that the railing is sort of framing the water there. It's really cool. Kenny, as you may have seen, it's all gold records, right? So
yeah,
I brought it up and I said, man, you know, I kind of have to up my game a little bit. Tell me about the records. And he said, well, yeah, that's Melissa Etheridge, and that's John Mellencamp. That's Rod Stewart. And
yeah.
And I said, well, yeah, it's great that you've got 1,300, you know, records there. And he goes, 1,300 records that have gone gold, platinum, or diamond. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, you win. So what I told his tech, I said, before we do part 2, I've got to get me some gold records on my back wall. And he goes, you can't. I go, what? He goes, no, there's none left. Kenny got them all. Like, okay. All right, man. So it's really neat though, to get to see those personalities. There are a lot of people that you would never think they are so invested in providing some sort of value and worth to people's lives that they just get caught in the rat race, you know, and they're trying to collect a check. But, you know, hopefully the pandemic will show that, right?
So kind of funny that kind of came through with me is like, you get these people who are intensely successful and they're a combination of arrogant and insecure at the same time.
Right.
It seems like a weird thing, but Kenny came across as both. I mean, he knows his own skill set, but yet he was humble to basically crawl, to get into the business, and then never really took himself so seriously. I think about writing the arrangements for the Tony Starlight Christmas show is Bo Ayers. Now, Bo was Liberace's arranger and conductor. He's conducted the Radio City Music Hall Christmas show. I mean, his pedigree is impeccable.
Yeah.
Barbra Streisand, Elvis Presley, for God's sake.
Wow.
He's done all this, and yet he's working for me on these things, but he treats me as if I'm one of the legends of the business. Like, he's so down to earth, never resting on his laurels, still hungry to do a good job and to please.
Says a lot about both of you.
I love the person that's humble like that. And
Yeah.
and maybe, like, I would, if he wasn't humble, I would probably forgive him that. I would go, oh,
Sure.
he's got a right to be a little bit cocky.
Yeah.
But he isn't at all.
Yeah.
And I love him even more.
Humility goes so far, man. It really does. If you put all those factors together, and if you were putting together the dream team, right, of people that you want to sort of, follow into the trenches, yeah, you want to find somebody that's confident and accomplished, accountable for their stuff, and humble,
God, yeah.
right? I mean, that's just all. It's it's a perfect storm. Not all of us get there, but it's a pretty good thing to go after, right? So,
Yeah.
I think I'm really grateful that you and I came from, the same sort of watering hole. I think it's really cool that, that we didn't get to know each other much there, but I do feel that, we were forged, some of our irons were forged in that
Oh,
same
yeah.
iron. And there are a lot of great people, from that area. So I don't feel
Yes,
like it's
there
home
are.
as much anymore, but I certainly do love to reconnect with people and see that they're out there just going after it.
Yeah. I hadn't been back in 30 years. I went up for the reunion, and people were so nice. It was great.
You did a great job. I watched the live stream of it while I was out on tour, man, and you were great. You fronted that as if
we had a fun group. We got together.
Ken Glenn certainly did a lot of work in that thing too. I was proud of him for just being a champ. But hey, listen, enjoy your afternoon there on the patio. I'm grateful that you took a little bit of time to share your world, and I'm really, really glad to see that the streaming thing is cool. I love the passion about your bird sort of observations, and I'm going to look forward to seeing more of those on Facebook. And I really, really hope that we get this process done so that the showroom can be back in action and get people in there packed in live.
It'll be fun to talk in a year and see what has changed in this crazy business we're in, Kevin, because it is changed big time.
For sure. Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll be better. And I believe that, right? We're going to have some positive memories and not just negative ones. I just got a little note there from Tim Worley saying he really enjoyed getting to see you on here too. So that's
nice.
That's nice. And you got a lot of fans out there, not just locals, but hey, Brett, thank you so much, man. Best of wishes for both of you guys. Enjoy this weather while we've got it. Thank you guys all for being here and chatting. It's been really fun to watch all these fans of Tony and Jimmy Mack and Terry Courier. If you just jumped in, make sure that you check out the links that I have in the embedded archive on kevinrankin.com. We'll have links to Tony Starlight Showroom's YouTube channel and also tonystarlight.com. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, because I've got guests going on all over the place. Tomorrow at this time, Fraud Profits is going to be on, which is my dear pal, Nate Morton. He's the drummer on the TV show The Voice, and he has an incredible project with Sean Halley. It's one of the most remarkable albums that came out this last year of a combination of everything from progressive, improvisational, jazz, fusion, rock, pop, and I think it's for me, it's one of the most it's a perfect road trip album. So come hang out with us. We'll talk about that and figure out what's going on with guys that have to play on TV for The Voice when we were dealing with the pandemic. And later on this weekend, there's a Butte band, Jeremy Scared, that our locals would remember from long ago. Next week, we've got Todd Zuckerman, drummer from Styx. Amazing show. He's a phenomenal Hall of Famer. And I think Ricky Rackman as well will be on Wednesday. Wow. So that will be a good one. We're going to do a live Q&A from backyard at Bed and Breakfast in Portland. all sorts of great guests. So subscribe to this channel and subscribe to Tony Starlight's channel.
Yeah.
And have a wonderful weekend, everybody. I love you, Tony, Brett. Thank you, man, so much. You guys have a great day. Enjoy the weekend. Be good humans. Take care, buddy.